The transit hall of the deep space carrier Velkaran Ascendant smelled of ozone and cold metal, and nobody aboard paid any attention to the young human standing quietly against the observation glass. His name was Sam Rayes, and to the thousands of passengers moving through the vast concourse he was nothing at all. Just another soft-bodied biped in a gray civilian jacket, shoulders loose, a small duffel slung across his back, waiting for a shuttle connection like 10,000 others. He was 27 years old, though the Thren didn't measure ages the way humans did and would not have guessed. To them he looked young, unthreatening, a creature made of water and bone that any of their crew could snap without effort. He held a cup of synthetic coffee that had gone lukewarm 40 minutes ago, and he did not drink it. He watched. That was the first thing the aliens would never have understood about Sam Rayes if they had bothered to look closely. He was always watching. The Ascendant was not a warship, not officially. It was a mobile port, a titanic wheel of a vessel a dozen kilometers across, one of the great Thren transit stations that drifted along the trade corridors linking the human colonial worlds to the wider galactic network. Half its enormous bulk was docking rings and cargo spine. The other half was habitation, commerce, bureaucracy, the endless churn of species passing through on their way to somewhere else. Thren ran it. Tall, chitin-plated, four-armed. They moved with the unhurried confidence of a species that had held these lanes for 900 years and had never once needed to defend them by force. Humans were new here, barely 40 years since first contact, still probationary members of the Corridor Accords, still watched with a mixture of curiosity and mild contempt. The galaxy had decided in its collective wisdom that humans were resourceful but crude, emotional, prone to violence in a way that made the older species uncomfortable and yet crucially weak. Fragile physiology, short lives, no natural weapons. A Thren dockworker could lift 3 times a human's mass without straining a joint. The consensus was that humanity survived on cleverness and desperation and would eventually be house-trained. Sam had heard all of it. He'd heard it in the customs line an hour ago, when the Thren agent had run a scanner over his duffel and made a low clicking sound that his translator rendered, dryly, as an amused equivalent of *harmless. He'd heard it in the way the security officers at the checkpoint hadn't even watched his hands. He filed it away without expression. He had spent a great many years being underestimated by people who did not survive the experience, and he had learned that the feeling of being invisible was not an insult. It was an advantage. He was traveling to Earth for the first time in 3 years. That was the whole of his plan. Get to the shuttle, ride down the corridor to the Sol transfer and go home to a small apartment in a coastal city he barely remembered and a family that had stopped expecting him. He had left the service 11 months ago, officially. The papers were filed, the clearances revoked. The version of himself that had done certain things in certain dark places quietly retired and told to go be a person again. He was trying. He genuinely was. He had a civilian jacket and a lukewarm coffee and a shuttle ticket, and he was doing his level best to be nothing at all. The universe, as it tends to, had other plans. He noticed the wrongness before the alarm. He always would. It started small. A shift in the crowd's texture, the kind of thing you learn to feel before you can name it. 3 Thren in maintenance harnesses moving against the flow of traffic, too fast, too coordinated, their 4 arms held too still. A cargo lift on the far side of the concourse sealing its blast doors when there was no cargo cycling. The faint, almost subliminal drop in the ambient noise of the station as somewhere, deep in its systems, someone began quietly locking things down. Sam set the coffee on the ledge beside him. He didn't hurry. He turned, slow and casual, a young man stretching his back after a long wait, and in the turn he mapped the entire concourse. Exits, 4 main, 2 service, 1 freight. Thren security post at the North Arch, 2 officers, weapons holstered, board. Civilians, dense, maybe 2,000 in the immediate hall, a dozen species, mostly Thren but also a knot of gray Select traders and a family of the small feathered Asa near the fountain. Children among them. The maintenance crew that wasn't a maintenance crew had reached the environmental control junction beside the North Arch, and one of them had produced, from inside the harness, something that was very much not a maintenance tool. There it is, Sam thought, with the strange calm that came over him at moments like this, the calm that 11 months of civilian life had not been able to burn out of him. There's the day going wrong. The first shot took the security officer at the North Post through the throat. It was not loud. The weapon was some kind of coil sidearm, and it made a sound like a hard cough and a snap of displaced air, and the Thren officer folded backward against the arch with his forearms splaying and did not get up. His partner had time to turn, to reach for a holster, and the second cough dropped her beside him. The whole thing took less than 2 seconds, and for a heartbeat after, the concourse simply did not understand what it had seen. Then someone screamed, and the world came apart. The panic hit like a physical wave. 2,000 bodies surging in every direction at once, translators shrieking, the deep bellow of the Thren distress call cutting under it all like a foghorn. The false maintenance crew moved with brutal efficiency. One of them was at the environmental junction, arms buried to the second joint in the control housing, and Sam watched the great blast doors along the concourse begin to descend, one after another sealing the hall. Not opening, closing. Whoever these people were, they weren't here to rob a shuttle and run. They were here to take the whole hall and hold it and everyone in it. A takeover, a siege, 2,000 hostages and a coordinated assault team seizing a critical node of a station 12 kilometers wide. Sam Rays stood very still against the observation glass, and while every other creature in the hall ran, he did the thing that had once made an entire specialized unit request him by name. He thought. Count them, he counted, 9 visible. Coil weapons matched, military grade, not the mismatched junk of pirates. Body language disciplined, sectors of fire assigned, one clearly in command directing the others with sharp forearmed gestures. Thren, all of them, which meant this was internal, this was someone inside the Accords, which meant this was political, which meant they wanted the hostages alive as leverage, at least for now. Small mercy, the kind you could work with. Find the seams. The blast doors were down, but the freight door in the southeast corner had jammed a quarter open, some mechanical hitch in the emergency cycle, and no one on the assault team had noticed yet because they were busy corralling the screaming crowd toward the center of the hall with their weapons raised. A gap, a seam. Sam's eyes went to it and away again, filing it, not moving toward it. Not yet. Don't be a hero. That was the rule. The first rule, the one they drilled into you until it replaced instinct. You are not a hero. Heroes get seen. Heroes get shot. Heroes get the person next to them shot. You are a ghost with a purpose, and your purpose is not to look like anything at all until the exact moment it matters, and then it is over before anyone knows it began. So Sam Rays did the smartest thing a lethal man can do in a room full of people who think he's harmless. He got down on the floor with the hostages, put his hands behind his head, and became invisible again. The assault team herded them into the center of the hall, a great terrified crowd of a dozen species forced down onto the polished deck under the blank eyes of the coil weapons. Sam knelt between a shuddering Select trader and the Asa family, and he made himself small, and he watched everything through the fringe of his own lashes with the total, patient attention of a predator who has decided, for now, to be prey. The one in command moved through the kneeling crowd like a lord surveying a field. Tall even for a Thren, easily 2.5 meters, chitin plating lacquered a deep arterial red across the shoulders and skull crest in a pattern Sam didn't recognize but instinctively read as rank, as vanity, as a man who wanted to be looked at. His forearms were long and scarred. When he spoke, his voice came through every translator in the hall at once, which meant he'd already patched into the station's comm grid, which meant he had a technician somewhere doing exactly the right things, which meant this was even more organized than Sam had feared. "Be calm," the red-plated Thren said, and the word *calm* came through the translator with an oily gentleness that made Sam's skin crawl. "You are not our enemy. You are our guests. My name is Vorth Kal, and by the end of this cycle, the whole corridor will know it." Terrorist wants a stage, Sam thought. Terrorist has a manifesto, good. Talkers are slow. Slow is time. Time is what I need. For 900 years, Vorth Kal went on pacing. The Ascendant and her sister stations have served the Assembly's masters and grown fat while the Thren who built them starved on the outer holds. That ends today. We have taken this concourse. We have taken its environmental spine, its comm relays, and its docking authority. In 17 minutes we will have taken the reactor authority as well, and then this station, and everyone breathing its air, belongs to me until my demands are met. 17 minutes to the reactor, Sam noted. He's counting down out loud. Sloppy or arrogant, same thing right now. "You will not be harmed," Kal continued, "if the Assembly is wise, but the Assembly has never been wise, so..." He stopped pacing. He turned slow, and his gaze swept the kneeling crowd, and for the first time Sam felt the man's attention pass over the human section of the hostages and hesitate and move on, dismissive, barely worth noticing, a soft creature of water and bone. Sam kept his eyes down and his breathing even, and let himself be nothing. "So we will begin with a demonstration," Vorth Kal said, "to show the Assembly that we are serious, that their soft rules do not protect them here." He gestured to one of his people, and two of the assault team waded into the crowd and seized the nearest hostage they could reach, a young Thren dockworker in a stained coverall who had clearly just been unlucky enough to be at the front. They dragged him out into the open space at the center of the hall, forced him to his knees before Kal, and the red-plated Thren raised his coil sidearm and pressed it to the base of the dockworker's skull. "Watch," Kal said to the entire hall, to every translator, to the comm relays feeding the whole corridor. "Watch what the Assembly's cowardice has cost." And Sam Rays, kneeling in the crowd with his hands laced behind his head, understood in that instant that the calm and the patience and the waiting were over, because there was about to be a body. And after the first body, the arithmetic of a hostage situation changed forever, and he was the only person in a hall of 2,000 terrified beings who knew what to do about any of it. He did not stand up, not yet. Standing up got you shot. Instead, in the half-second before Vorth Kal killed a man to make a point, Sam Rays did something that no Thren in that hall could have predicted, because it required him to have already, in the 90 seconds since the first shot, mapped the entire environmental junction, identified the pressure differential seals the false maintenance crew had been tampering with, and calculated exactly which one he could reach and what would happen when he did. He had palmed a thin emergency pressure key off the wall behind the observation glass when he first turned around, a small orange tool meant for venting a jammed airlock, the kind of thing a bored maintenance tech leaves clipped to a bulkhead. No one had watched his hands. No one ever did. He drove it into the deck seam beside his knee and twisted, and the concourse's emergency pressure protocol, which Vorth Kal's technician had disabled at the master junction, but not at the local relays, did exactly what 4 decades of Thren engineering had built it to do. Every light in the transit hall went red, and a wall of emergency atmosphere alarm sirens went off at 140 decibels, and the crowd of 2,000 hostages, already at the ragged edge of panic, broke. They stampeded. And in the chaos of 2,000 screaming bodies surging in every direction at once, one young human in a gray jacket came up off the floor and vanished into the crowd like a stone dropped into a flood. And Vorth Kal, who had been about to become a legend, found himself standing over a dockworker who was no longer kneeling but scrambling away into the mob, and a hall that had, in the space of a single heartbeat, stopped being his. "Hold them," Kal roared, and his voice cracked through every translator, and his assault team fired warning shots into the ceiling, and it did no good at all because a stampede does not listen to warning shots. Hold them. But Sam Ray's was already gone. Low, fast, moving with the current and then against it, threading the panic with a body economy that would have looked, to anyone watching, like nothing more than a terrified young man running for his life. He hit the jammed freight door in the southeast corner, the quarter-open seam he'd filed away 90 seconds ago, and folded himself through it into the dark of the service corridor beyond, and was gone from the hall entirely before Vorthkal had finished shouting. He was not running away. That was the thing the Thren would spend the next several hours failing to understand, the thing that would cost them everything. In the language of Sam's old unit, there was a word for what he was doing, and it was not asterisk fleeing. It was asterisk repositioning. He had left the kill box not to escape it but to get behind it, to go where the enemy wasn't looking into the guts of the station, and start, quietly and methodically, taking it back one seam at a time. The freight corridor was cold and dim and smelled of coolant. Sam crouched in the dark for exactly 4 seconds, controlling his breathing, letting his heart come down off the adrenaline spike, and he took stock. 2,000 hostages, 9+ hostiles, disciplined military, 17 minutes, now maybe 15, until they controlled the reactor. A leader who wanted a stage and a corridor-wide audience. A station 12 kilometers across with its comm relays already compromised, which meant no one outside could hear a call for help. And one human, alone, unarmed, whom everyone in the galaxy had already decided was too soft and too small and too fragile to matter. Sam Ray's, 27 years old, off duty, going home, exhaled slowly in the dark. "Okay," he said quietly to no one. "Okay. Let's go to work." And then, because there was no one to hear him, and it was the last human thing he'd let himself feel for a while, he added, under his breath, the old grim joke his team sergeant used to mutter before every insertion, the one that meant this is going to be bad and we're going to do it anyway, asterisk. Home for dinner. The service corridor ran like an artery through the guts of the concourse level, a maintenance spine of ducting and cable runs, and graded walkways that the passengers up above never saw. Sam moved through it the way he'd been trained to move through unfamiliar ground, fast where the sightlines were long, slow where they weren't, always with one hand trailing the wall to feel the vibration of the station, the deep bass hum that told him which systems were live. He needed 3 things, and he needed them in order. He needed to know the layout. He needed a weapon. And he needed to find out whether he was truly alone, or whether the station's own security had managed to organize any kind of response before the comm relays went dark. The layout came first, and it came easier than he'd expected, because the Thren who built the Ascendant had done what every large station engineering culture eventually does. They had covered the walls in schematics. Every junction had a diagram, glowing softly in the dim, meant for maintenance crews. Sam couldn't read Thren's script, but he could read a map, and a map is a map in any language. He crouched at the first junction and took it in whole, memorizing it the way he'd once memorized building plans off a briefing screen with 60 seconds on the clock. The concourse he'd left was one of 6 radial transit halls arranged around a central hub. The environmental spine, the thing Kal's people had seized, ran up through the core. The reactor authority, the prize Kal was racing toward, sat 2 decks up and 40 degrees around the ring in a hardened control node. And the comm relays, the ones that had gone dark, were closer. 1 primary array, 1 deck down at the base of the docking spine, a place marked with the universal glyph for high-voltage danger. Sam looked at that glyph for a long moment. If the comm relays were down, then no distress call was reaching the corridor authorities, which meant no relief was coming, not for hours, maybe not until Kal wanted it to come, which meant that as far as the rest of the galaxy knew, The Velkaran ascendant was simply proceeding on schedule, and 2,000 people were about to die in the dark without anyone even knowing to mourn them. Unless someone turned the relays back on. That's the mission, Sam thought. Not the hostages, not yet. You can't save 2,000 people by yourself. But you can get one signal out, and one signal brings the cavalry, and the cavalry can do what you can't. It was the discipline that separated an operator from a hero. A hero would have turned around, gone back to the hall, tried to save the people he could see. Would have died in the first 30 seconds and accomplished nothing. Sam turned the other way, toward the comm array, toward the thing that mattered, and he moved. He got his weapon on the way. 2 decks down, at a maintenance airlock, he found the body of a Thren security officer. Not one of Call's. A station guard in the deep blue of the Ascendant's own force, slumped against the bulkhead with a coil burned through the chest. He'd been running for the comm array too, Sam guessed when he'd made it, when Call's people caught him. There was dark Thren blood pooled beneath him, already going tacky in the cold, and his eyes, the wide amber compound eyes of his species, were open and empty. Sam knelt beside him. He didn't look away from the dead man's face. He'd learned a long time ago that you did not get to look away, that the moment you started letting the dead be furniture was the moment you became something you didn't want to be. So he looked for a second, and he let it cost him what it cost him, and then he did the necessary thing. The sidearm was still holstered. A Thren coil pistol, heavy, 4-fingered grip, ergonomics designed for a hand that wasn't his. Sam drew it, turned it over, found the charge indicator glowing a dim, confident green. He wrapped his human hand around the alien grip, and it fit badly, but it fit. He'd fired stranger things. He checked the action, found the safety catch by feel and logic and slid it off, then on again. Then he took the spare charge cells from the dead officer's harness, 4 of them, cold cylinders that clicked satisfyingly into a pouch, and the officer's comm bead, and the officer's ident chit, because an ident chit might open a door. "Thank you," Sam said quietly to the dead man, and meant it and moved on. Now he had a map and a weapon. Now he needed to know if he was alone. He found the answer at the base of the docking spine at the comm array, and the answer was, not quite. The array chamber was a 2-story vault of humming relay banks, blue-lit, thick with the ozone smell of high-voltage equipment. Call had left it guarded, of course he had. It was the whole point, and Sam crouched at the entrance grate and counted 2 hostiles inside. 2 of the false maintenance crew, coil rifles slung, standing watch over a third figure who was on his knees at the master relay console with his 4 arms working. A technician, the one Sam had guessed at, the one who'd killed the whole station's voice. And crouched behind a relay bank 10 meters from the guards, so still that Sam almost missed her, was a young Thren in the deep blue of station security. Alive. Pinned. A pistol in her lower right hand and no shot she could take against 2 rifles without dying for it. She'd made it this far, this one guard, and then run out of options, and now she was frozen in the exact trap that swallowed brave people. 2 committed to run, 2 outgunned to fight. Sam watched her for 3 seconds and read the whole story off her body. Junior officer, scared out of her mind. Not trained for this, not really. Station security spent their careers checking ident chits and breaking up cargo disputes. But she hadn't run. She was still here at the thing that mattered, which meant she understood what the comm array meant, which meant she was smart, and which meant, Sam decided, that she was an asset. The problem was getting to her, without getting them both killed. He thought about it for 4 seconds, which in the currency of a firefight is a very long time. 2 rifles. 1 pistol he could barely grip. A technician he needed alive, or at least needed the console alive. A frightened guard who would, the instant anything happened, do something loud and reflexive that would get her shot, and no way to communicate with her before it started. So you don't communicate. You just make it happen so fast she doesn't have time to do the wrong thing. Sam moved. He came through the entrance grate low and silent, and he was across the first 6 meters of open floor before either guard's compound eyes tracked the motion. And by the time the nearest one had swung his rifle, Sam was already inside the arc of it, one hand shoving the barrel skyward as it discharged into the ceiling, the other bringing the heavy Thren pistol up under the guard's jaw and firing once. The second guard shouted and fired, and Sam was already dropping, already using the first guard's collapsing body as cover. And the shot went wide, and Sam came out from behind the falling corpse at an angle the second guard hadn't accounted for and put 2 rounds through his chest before he could correct. Both guards were down in under 3 seconds. The technician spun from the console, 4 arms flying up, unarmed, mouth open, and Sam had the pistol on him, and the technician froze. "Don't," Sam said. His translator carried it. His voice was very level. "Hands where I can see all 4. Good. Now put them back on that console and turn the comm relays back on." The technician stared at him. So did the young security officer, up from behind her relay bank now, pistol wavering between Sam and the technician and the general universe, her amber eyes enormous. She started, her translator stuttered. "You're a asterisk human, you're a asterisk civilian, how did you?" "Later," Sam said, not taking his eyes off the technician. "What's your name, officer?" Thren Security Officer Dennis Sorrell. "I third watch, docking authority, I don't." "Denna, good, you're doing fine." He said it the way he'd once said it to frighten people in worse rooms than this, low and certain, the tone that reached past panic and gave the animal brain something to hold on to. "I need you to cover the door, just the door. If anyone comes through it who isn't me, you shoot them." "Can you do that?" She swallowed. Her plating had gone the pale gray that Sam would come to learn was the Thren equivalent of a bloodless face. But she moved to the door and she raised her pistol and she covered it. Because someone had told her exactly what to do, and in the middle of a nightmare, that is worth more than courage. Sam turned the full weight of his attention on the technician. "The relays," he said, "turn them on." "I can't," the technician said, his voice shook. "Vorthkal will kill if the signal goes out, he'll." "Vorthkal isn't here," Sam said. "I am, and I'm the one with the gun." "Turn them on." "You don't understand." The technician's 4 arms were trembling, but there was something else under the fear now, something Sam clocked immediately. This one wasn't a soldier. He was a specialist, coerced or conscripted in over his head. A seam. He'll know. The moment the array comes back online, he'll see it on the master board, and he'll know exactly where, and he'll send them, and there are only 2 of you and... "How long?" Sam cut in. "What?" "From the moment the array comes online to the moment his people get here. How long?" The technician did the math, and Sam watched him do it, watched the specialist in him overrule the terror for 1 useful second. 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. The nearest team is in the environmental spine. They'd have 2 minutes. "Then I've got 2 minutes," Sam said. "Turn it on." "They'll kill you." "They can try." Sam leaned in a fraction, and something in his young, ordinary, unremarkable face shifted, some cold and patient thing surfacing that made the technician flinch back against the console. "Listen to me. Right now you're a man who helped murder a station's comm relays. That's what you are if this ends badly. But if you turn them back on right now, you're the man who saved 2,000 people. You don't get to be both. Choose fast." The technician chose. His 4 arms flew across the console, and Sam watched the alien script cascade, and he couldn't read a word of it, but he could read the technician's body, and the technician's body said asterisk, "This is real. This is working." Relay banks that had been dark flickered blue. Somewhere above them, Sam knew, a master board in Vorthkal's hands had just lit up with a warning. "It's routing," the technician gasped. "The array's live, but the outbound, the corridor buoy, it needs an authenticated distress packet or it'll dump the signal as noise. The buoy won't relay an unauthenticated." "Then authenticate it." Sam's mind was already 3 moves ahead, already at the 90-second clock, already mapping the chamber for the fight that was coming. "Dana, come here. Your station security. Can you authenticate a distress packet?" The young officer hesitated, then hurried over, and Sam saw the moment she understood, the moment the training she did of surface through the fear. "My ident, third watch has emergency authority. I can, yes, I can authenticate." "Do it now." She dropped beside the technician and jammed her ident chit into the console, and her lower hands worked while her upper hands still gripped the pistol, and Sam stepped back and turned to face the door, because the 90 seconds had started the moment the array went live, and he had spent 30 of them already. "Talk to me," he said. "Where are we?" "Packets building," Dana said. It needs a fixed authentication window, 40 seconds, I can't rush it. The buoy will reject a corrupted. 40 seconds, it has to be 40 seconds. 40 seconds, asterisk, Sam thought. And 2 minutes on the clock, minus the 30 I've burned. So the packet finishes with 50 seconds to spare if his people are slow, and none to spare if they're fast. He moved to the entrance, to the grated doorway, and he found the angle, the one place in the chamber where a single person could hold a doorway against a team coming down a corridor, the choke point that turned 2 rifles into a manageable problem instead of a death sentence. He'd found 100 doorways like it in 100 worse places. He set his feet. He checked the pistol's charge, green, and 2 spare cells in the pouch. He breathed. 40 seconds, Dana said behind him, starting now. And from somewhere down the corridor beyond the door, Sam heard the sound he'd been waiting for, the sound of Vorthkal's answer to the array coming back online. The heavy, coordinated footfalls of a fire team moving fast toward the comm chamber, toward the one thing Call could not allow, toward the young human who was, at that exact moment, the only thing standing between 2,000 hostages and the silence that Call needed to kill them all. Sam raised settled into the doorway, raised the alien pistol in a 2-handed grip that had never felt right and never needed to, and became, for the next 40 seconds, the most dangerous single point in the entire 12-kilometer breadth of the Velkaran Ascendant. "Dana," he said without turning around, his voice as calm as still water, "whatever happens back there, do not stop the count. Do not look up. You finish that packet no matter what you hear. Understand?" Yes." "Good," said Sam. "Then let's find out how serious they are." The first of Call's soldiers came around the corner, and Sam Ray's went to work. The corridor outside the comm chamber was a straight run of maybe 15 meters, and Vorthkal's fire team came down it, the way disciplined soldiers come down a corridor toward a single lightly armed target, fast, hard, and confident. 3 of them. Coil rifles up, moving in a stack, the lead man peeling wide to clear the doorway while the second covered and the third held rear security. It was good technique. It was the technique you used against another soldier, someone who would fight you fair, trade shots, try to win the firefight on volume and aggression. Sam Ray's did not fight fair, and he had no intention of trading anything. He fired his first shot not at the men, but at the emergency lighting panel above the doorway, and the corridor beyond went black. The Thren had good eyes, better than human eyes in low light, compound and wide, but no eye adjusts instantly, and for 1 second, one crucial second, the fire team was 3 soldiers charging into sudden darkness, while Sam stood in the blue-lit chamber behind them with his own eyes already narrowed and his target picture already built. He'd stood in the light on purpose. He'd killed the corridor on purpose. Now they were silhouettes coming out of black into blue, and he was a shadow behind the frame, and the geometry was entirely, brutally his. The lead soldier crossed the threshold, and Sam shot him twice through the center of mass and stepped left, out of the doorway, so that the second soldier's return fire hammered through empty space where a fair fighter would have stood his ground. The muzzle flash of the return fire lit the corridor for a strobe instant, and in that instant Sam had the second soldier's exact position, and he leaned back into the frame at a low angle no one expects and fired up under the rifle, and the second soldier folded. 2 down in 4 seconds. The third, the rear security man, was smart. He didn't charge. He backpedaled, firing suppression down the corridor to keep Sam pinned in the chamber, and shouted into his comm for reinforcement. And that was exactly the correct thing to do. And it was also the thing that told Sam this one was the real professional of the group and needed to die first, not last. "Dinna," Sam said, calm, flat, not turning. "Count." 20 seconds, she said, her voice a thin wire behind him. 20 seconds. Coil fire chewed the doorframe beside Sam's head, showering him with hot slag. He pulled back into cover, pressed against the blue-lit relay bank, and did the math in the dark behind his eyes. The rear security man was falling back and calling for help. In 20 seconds, a second team would arrive, and then he'd be pinned against a doorway with the packet unfinished, and it would all have been for nothing. He couldn't wait 20 seconds. He had to end the third man now, and to do that he had to leave cover and cross a corridor a professional was actively suppressing, which was suicide. Unless he changed the corridor. Sam's eyes went to the ceiling of the chamber, to the fat coolant conduit running the length of it and out through the wall above the doorway, out into the corridor beyond. High-pressure coolant, the kind that ran cold enough to fog the air of a chamber this size. He'd smelled it the moment he came in. He raised the pistol and shot the conduit where it crossed the doorway. The line ruptured with a scream of pressure, and a geyser of supercooled coolant vapor blasted into the corridor, and the whole passage vanished into a churning white fog that no compound eye could see through any better than a human one. The suppression fire stopped. You don't fire blind down a corridor full of your own reinforcements, and in the sudden white blindness, Sam went out through the doorway low and fast, feeling the wall with his offhand, counting his steps, and he came out of the fog exactly where he'd calculated the rear security man would be, and the man never saw him at all. It was over. 3 soldiers dead in a fogged black corridor, and 1 human walking back out of the white cloud into the blue light of the chamber, unhurt, the alien pistol steady in his hand. 10 seconds, Denna breathed. She was staring at him. So was the technician. Both of them frozen, watching this soft-bodied creature that the entire galaxy called fragile walk out of a killing fog like it was a room he'd left a coat in. How did you? Count, Sam said. Don't look at me, look at the packet. She looked at the packet. 543. Somewhere down the corridor, muffled by the coolant fog in the distance, Sam heard the second fire team arriving, heard them stop at the wall of white vapor, heard their commander's voice, tight and furious, ordering them to hold. They wouldn't charge into that fog after what they'd surely just heard happen to the first team. Not immediately. They'd stack up, they'd wait for the vapor to clear, they'd do it right. Which bought Sam another 30 seconds, which was 30 seconds more than he needed. "1," said Denna Sorrel, "pack it away. She stared at the console, at the cascade of alien script, and her plating flushed from bloodless gray to a deep living green, and Sam knew before she said it. "It's away. The buoy accepted it. The distress signal is out. It's out, it's on the corridor network. Everyone, every station in 3 jumps just heard us. Help is coming." For 1 second nobody spoke. The comm chamber hummed. The coolant fog drifted through the doorway in slow blue tendrils. And 2 Thren, a frightened junior officer and a coerced technician, looked at the young human standing among them and understood that the arithmetic of the entire day had just been rewritten by 1 small, unarmed civilian who was supposed to be nothing at all. Then Sam Reyes said, "Good work," and started reloading his pistol, and the moment was over because there was no time for moments. He seated a fresh charged cell, checked the green, and turned to the 2 of them. "Listen to me, both of you. The signal being out doesn't save anyone, it just starts a clock. Corridor response to a station this size, how long?" Denna's mind was catching up now, the training resurfacing as the shock receded. "A full response, A cutter, a boarding force, 2 hours, maybe 3. The nearest assembly picket is, she checked. 2 jumps out, 3 hours realistic. 3 hours, Sam nodded slowly. He'd expected worse. And call, how long until he has the reactor authority? The technician answered because the technician knew. The timeline was 17 minutes when he took the hall. He looked at the chamber's chronometer. That was 11 minutes ago. 6 minutes. In 6 minutes his people breach the reactor node, and then he controls the fusion authority for the entire station. And what does that get him? The technician's 4 arms went very still. Everything. If he holds the reactor, he holds every life support zone, every blast door, every docking clamp on the ascendant. He can vent any section to vacuum with a command. He can crush any docking ship. He can, the technician's voice dropped. He can overload the containment, scuttle the whole station. 200,000 souls, not just the 2 in the hall. He was never going to negotiate with the reactor as a bargaining chip. He was going to use it as an asterisk gun to the galaxy's head. Sam absorbed that. 3 hours until help. 6 minutes until Vorith Kal held a gun to the heads of 200,000 people and could pull the trigger with a word. The math was ugly and it was simple. The distress signal had bought a future, but the reactor would end that future before it arrived. If Kal took the reactor authority, then when the assembly cutter finally showed up in 3 hours, it would find a scuttled station and a dead crew and a martyr who'd made his point in fire. Which meant the mission had just changed again. New objective, Sam said. We stop him getting the reactor. Denna stared. There are *2* of you, there's *1* of you and a technician and me, and I've never. There's more than that. Sam had already thought this through, in the part of his mind that never stopped running the numbers. There are 2,000 people in that hall he needs alive as leverage, which means he can't use the reactor to vent the hall. That's his own bank account. There's a security force on this station that's been decapitated but not destroyed. Denna, are there more of you? Blue uniforms, scattered, cut off. Yes, there have to be. The whole third watch. We lost contact when the comms went down, but they're out there, they're just leaderless, blind. Then they're not leaderless anymore. Sam's voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. The comms are back up. Your people can hear each other again. Get on that console, put out a security band, and pull every blue uniform on this station into one net. Right now, you're going to be their eyes. He turned to the technician. And you know Kal's timeline, his teams, his positions. You're going to be mine. What's your name? The technician swallowed. Asik Varn. I didn't want any of this, he took my. I don't care why you're here, Asik. I care what you do next. Sam checked the corridor. The fog was thinning. The second team would move soon. They had maybe 90 seconds to be gone. Right now you're the only person who can tell me how to get to the reactor node before Kal does. So tell me, is there a way, a maintenance route, a back door, something his people wouldn't be watching, to get to the reactor authority node in under 6 minutes? Asik Varn's 4 arms trembled, and then slowly they stilled, and something changed in the technician's posture, some small straightening, the posture of a man who has decided which side he is going to die on. There's the coolant spine, Asik said. The reactor's primary coolant loop runs through a service crawlway that comes out directly beneath the authority node. It's not on the standard schematics. It's a hazard route, sealed. You'd have to override 3 pressure locks. Kal's people wouldn't be watching it because no one's supposed to be able to survive it. The coolant temperature in the spine is, he hesitated, it's lethal. 20 seconds of exposure and a Thren is dead. A human. A human's dead in 10, Sam finished. Understood. What else? Insulation suits. There are thermal maintenance suits at the spine entrance, but even in a suit, the window is. How long in a suit? Asik did the math, his specialist's mind grinding through it despite the fear. 90 seconds. A suit buys you 90 seconds in the spine before the coolant kills you anyway. The crawl is 80 seconds if you move fast and don't stop. He looked at Sam. It's a 10-second margin. If anything goes wrong, if you slow down, if a lock sticks. Then it's 10 seconds of margin, Sam said. I've worked with less. He said it flatly, without bravado, the way a man states a fact about the weather, and both Thren understood in that moment that he meant it, that he had genuinely, in some other life, in some other dark and terrible place, worked with less than 10 seconds of margin between himself and death, and had walked out the far side. Denna, Sam said, security net now. Pull your people together and tell them to hold position and stay off the main routes. I don't want a bunch of scared cops charging calls guns and getting slaughtered. I want them intact for when I need them. Can you do that? She looked at the console, at the security band, at the human, and Sam watched the last of the paralysis fall off her like a shed skin, watched her become, for the first time, an officer. Yes, I can do that. Osik, the suits and the coolant spine, move. You're going alone, Osik said. Into the reactor spine to stop an armed team, alone. Sam Reyes was already moving toward the door, toward the thinning fog, toward the 6-minute clock and the coolant that killed a man in 10 seconds, and the reactor authority node where Vorith Kal was about to put a gun to the head of the galaxy. I'm not going alone, Sam said. I've got you too. That's more than I usually get. And then at the door, he paused and looked back at the young security officer and the frightened technician. These two ordinary people he'd known for 4 minutes and was about to trust with 200,000 lives. And he said the thing that his old team leader used to say, the thing that turned scared strangers into a unit, the only real magic Sam Reyes had ever learned. You're not victims anymore. As of right now, you're the resistance. Act like it. Then he was gone into the fog, into the guts of the station, running against a 6-minute clock toward a coolant crawlway that would kill him in 10 seconds, and a reactor he had to reach before a man who wanted to hold the galaxy hostage. And behind him, a junior officer squared her shoulders and keyed a security band that had been silent for 11 minutes, and said, in a voice that no longer shook, "All third watch units, all blue, this is Officer Sorrel. If you can hear this, the Ascendant is not lost. Regroup and hold. Help is on the way. Help is already here. 2 decks up and 40 degrees around the ring, in the master control node that Vorith Kal had made his throne room. The red-plated Thren stood over a wall of captured displays and watched a single line of data ruin his morning. The comm array was live again. Kal did not shout. He had shouted once already in the hall when the human had triggered the pressure alarm and turned his demonstration into a stampede, and shouting had gained him nothing. He was learning, in real time, that this operation was not going to proceed the way he had planned it across 2 years of preparation, and Vorith Kal was many unpleasant things, but he was not stupid, and so he did what intelligent, dangerous men do when the plan breaks. He stopped and he thought, and he asked the correct question. Who, he said to the technician at his side, not Osik, a different one, a true believer, turned the array back on. The forward team reported hostiles in the comm chamber, Commander. Multiple, organized. They lost 3. 3, Kal's compound eyes did not blink. I sent 3 of my best to retake a comm chamber held by whom? Station security had 11 officers on the concourse level, and we killed 9 of them in the first 90 seconds. Who are these multiple organized hostiles? The true believer technician had no answer. Kal turned back to his displays. He was a creature of preparation, of patience. He had spent 2 years placing his people, mapping the station's every system, planning each stage of the takeover down to the second. He knew this station better than the crew that ran it, and in all his planning, in all his contingencies, he had accounted for the station's security forces and the assembly's response fleet, and even the possibility of a hero among the crew. He had not accounted for a ghost. "Pull the concourse feeds," Call said. "The moment of the stampede, I want to see who set off the pressure alarm." The feeds came up and Call watched, and he saw it. The wall of red light, the stampede, 2,000 bodies breaking. And there, in the corner of the frame, for half a second before the crowd swallowed him, a small gray-jacketed figure coming up off the floor with a motion that was all wrong, too smooth, too economical, moving into the chaos he'd created rather than away from it, and then gone. Call froze the frame. He looked at the small, soft creature in the gray jacket. "A human," he said, and there was contempt in it, and under the contempt, for the first time, a thread of something that was not quite unease but was adjacent to it. A single human civilian did this. "Commander, the humans are, they're barely. The assembly ranks them below the Select. They have no natural, they can't possibly." "And yet," Vorith Call said softly, "3 of my best are dead in a comm chamber, and the array is live, and a distress packet is halfway to the picket line, and the only thing that changed is that one small, soft-bodied biped decided not to kneel." He straightened. "Do not tell me what the humans cannot do. Tell me where this one is now." They could not tell him. That was the whole problem, and Call understood it instantly, and it was in that moment that Vorith Call made the first genuinely dangerous decision of the siege, the decision that would turn a lopsided fight into a real one. He stopped underestimating. "Change the posture," he said. "All teams, we are no longer conducting a hostage operation with security cleanup. We are hunting a single high-value hostile inside our perimeter, and we treat him as we would treat one of our own, full alert. Nothing moves in the maintenance spine without 2 guns on it. And the reactor breach team," he checked the clock, "accelerate. I want the reactor authority in 4 minutes, not 6. Whoever this human is, he can't stop what he can't reach in time." Call turned back to the frozen image of the small figure in the gray jacket, and he studied it the way a hunter studies a track, and he said, quietly, to a man who could not hear him, "You are very good, whoever you are. But you are one, and I am Legion, and this station is mine. You have simply not yet understood that you have already lost." Far below, in the reactor coolant spine, Sam Ray's was proving him wrong 1 meter at a time. The thermal suit was Thren-sized, built for a 4-armed frame, and Sam swam in it, the extra sleeves flapping empty, the seals loose at his human joints. It didn't matter. It didn't have to fit. It had to buy him 90 seconds, and 90 seconds was a suit's problem, not a tailor's. Ossic's voice came through the comm bead, tight and urgent. "You're at the first pressure lock. Override code, I'm sending it. The moment you cycle it, the coolant temperature in the spine begins to equalize. Your 90 seconds start when that lock opens. Do you understand? 90 seconds from the lock, not from when you start crawling." "Understood." Sam keyed the override. The lock hissed. A wave of cold rolled out of it that he could feel even through the suit, a cold with weight to it, a cold that wanted him. "Talk me through it, every turn." "Straight crawl, 40 meters, then a T-junction, go left. The right fork is the primary loop, you'd be dead in 3 seconds. Left. Then 20 meters to the second lock, then a vertical shaft, 10 meters up, and the third lock opens directly beneath the reactor authority node's deck plating. There's a maintenance hatch. It comes up inside the node's floor, right in the middle of Call's breach team." "How many on the breach team?" 4, maybe 5. "They're cutting through the node's primary door from the outside. They don't know about the floor hatch. No one does." "Good," Sam said, and started to crawl. "Then they won't be watching it." The spine was a nightmare. The cold pressed in on every side, a living pressure, and even through the suit Sam could feel it beginning to reach him, a deep ache setting into his fingers as he pulled himself along the frost-slick crawlway hand over hand. His breath fogged the faceplate. The suit's seals, wrong for his body, leaked cold at the wrists and neck in thin knives. He counted his meters and he counted his seconds, and he did not let himself feel the fear, because fear cost time and he had no time to spend. 40 meters, T-junction, left. He went left. The right fork breathed a cold at him that was beyond cold, a cold that was simply death wearing a temperature, and he did not look at it. 60 seconds, Osik said in his ear, and his voice was shaking now because Osik was watching a clock and doing the math, and the math was very tight. You're at 60 seconds, 20 meters to the second lock. Move, human, * move. Sam moved. His fingers had stopped hurting, which was worse than hurting, which meant the cold had gotten into them past the point of pain, and he could feel his fine motor control beginning to go, and he needed his fingers for the override codes and the pistol both. He reached the second lock. He keyed the override. His fingers fumbled the sequence and he forced them, watching his own hands like they belonged to someone else, and the lock hissed, and the vertical shaft opened above him, 10 meters straight up into darkness. 70 seconds, Osik said, and now there was open despair in it. You have 20 seconds and a 10-meter climb and a lock and a hatch and human. I don't think. The margin's gone. The suit leaked more than I calculated. You have to come back. You have to. Can't come back, Sam said, already climbing, hauling himself up the frost-slick shaft with fingers he could no longer feel, driving his boots into the handholds by memory because he couldn't feel those either. No time to come back. Only forward. Third lock code. Give it to me now. Sam. It was the first time Osik had used his name. Sam, at 80 seconds the coolant reaches full lethal saturation even in the suit. You will die in that shaft. Do you hear me? You will * die. Sam reached the top of the shaft, the third lock. His fingers wouldn't close. He looked at them, these clumsy frozen human things, and he thought about the 2,000 people in the hall and the 200,000 in the station, and the young officer holding a security net together with her voice, and the technician in his ear who did not want any of this and was doing it anyway. And Sam Reyes did the thing he had always done, the thing that had made an entire unit request him by name, the thing that was the whole and entire secret of him. He decided that the cold did not get a vote. He forced his ruined fingers through the override sequence one number at a time, watching his hands from very far away, and the frost cracked off his knuckles, and on the last digit his hand spasmed and missed, and he drove it back and hit the number by main force, and the third lock hissed, and the hatch above him unsealed. 80 seconds, Osik whispered, Sam. Sam Reyes put his shoulder against the hatch and came up out of the floor of the reactor authority node like something rising from the dead, trailing coolant fog, half frozen, faceplate iced over, in the middle of Vorith Call's 4-man breach team. And before any of them had finished turning toward the impossible thing coming up out of their own floor, he had the pistol out of the suit and he was firing. The margin was gone. Osik was right. In another 10 seconds the coolant would have killed him in that shaft, but he wasn't in the shaft anymore. He was in the node, in the warm air, in the fight, and the fight he understood. The breach team never had a chance to understand it. They were cutting a door. Their backs were to the floor. They were not soldiers braced for combat. They were technicians and gunmen focused entirely on the wall in front of them, and the human came up behind them out of solid deck plating like a ghost made real, and he was fast, and he was cold, and he was very, very good. 4 seconds, 4 shots. The breach team went down where they stood, and Sam Reyes hauled himself the rest of the way out of the hatch and collapsed against the reactor authority console, shaking with the cold, his fingers screaming as the warmth brought the feeling roaring back, and he laughed once, short and ragged, a sound with no humor in it at all. Osik, he rasped into the comm. I'm in, reactor node's clear, breach team's down, the node is *ors. There was a silence on the line, a long one, and then Osik Varn's voice came back, and it was not steady, because the technician had spent the last 90 seconds listening to a countdown to a young man's death and had heard, instead, the young man live. You, Osik started, you crossed the coolant spine. You crossed it. No one crosses the coolant spine. There isn't a Thren alive who could have the cold, the margin, he stopped. And then, in a voice full of something Sam would only later recognize as awe, "What are you?" Sam Rays flexed his ruined, thawing fingers and picked up the alien pistol and looked at the reactor authority console. The console Vorth Call needed, the gun to the head of the galaxy, now sitting warm and unguarded under a half-frozen human's hand, and he answered the only way he knew how. "I'm a guy," he said, "who's trying to get home for dinner. Now walk me through locking this reactor down so that son of a bitch can never touch it. And Ossic." "Yes. Tell Denna to get her people ready. Because the moment Call figures out he's lost the reactor, he's going to stop being patient. And a patient enemy is a problem. But desperate *1, Sam's frozen breath fogged in the node's warm air. A desperate one makes mistakes, and I'm going to be there for every single one. Locking the reactor took 90 seconds and Ossic's steady voice in his ear, and when it was done, the console under Sam's thawing hands displayed a single glyph that even he could read, because Ossic had told him what it meant. Authority sealed, local override only, physical presence required. Vorth Call could send 1,000 commands from his stolen throne room, and the reactor would ignore every one of them. To take it now, he would have to come down here in person to the node and stand where Sam was standing. "He'll come," Ossic said. "The moment he sees the reactors locked out from his board, he'll come himself. He has to. It's his whole operation." "Good," Sam said. He was still shaking off the cold, working his fingers open and closed, forcing the blood back into them. "Then we know where he'll be. That's worth more than the reactor." "Worth Sam, he'll bring everyone. He has maybe 15 fighters left. He'll bring all of them. You can't hold this node against." "I'm not going to hold the node." Sam was already moving, already stripping off the ruined thermal suit, already thinking 3 steps past the reactor. "That's the mistake he wants me to make. He wants me to dig in around the prize so he can pin me and grind me down. So I'm not going to be here when he arrives. Denna, you on the net." The young officer's voice came through, clearer now, steadier. She'd spent the last several minutes doing exactly what he'd asked, and it had changed her. "I'm here. I've got 11 blue uniforms on the security band. Third watch scattered across 4 decks, all cut off, all alive. They're waiting for orders." A pause. "They're waiting for your orders, actually. I told them what you did in the comm chamber, and the reactor. She hesitated. They want to know who's giving the orders." "You are," Sam said. "What?" "Your station security. This is your station. Those are your people, and they'll follow a blue uniform they know before they'll follow a human they've never met. So it comes from you. I'll tell you what to say, but it comes from you." He said it without ceremony, because it wasn't ceremony, it was tactics. An outsider commanding local forces got hesitation, and hesitation got people killed, and Denna Sorrel wearing the authority would move 11 scared officers faster than Sam Rays ever could. "Can you do that, Officer Sorrel?" There was a silence, and then something in her voice that hadn't been there an hour ago. "Yes." "Tell me what to say." And so, from the reactor authority node, with a technician in one ear and a junior officer in the other, Sam Rays began to fight the way he had actually been trained to fight. Not as a lone gunman, but as the quiet center of a network, the mind at the middle of a web, turning 11 frightened cops and 1 coerced technician into a force that could be everywhere Vorth Call was not. He didn't tell them to attack. That was the first thing, the counterintuitive thing, the thing a hero would have gotten wrong. He told them to disappear, to pull back from every corridor Call's people patrolled, to go silent, to become ghosts in their own station. Because the moment Call committed his fighters to defending the reactor node and hunting the human, the rest of the Ascendant emptied out, and an empty station full of hidden friendlies was a very different battlefield than a station full of scattered targets. "He's got 15 fighters and 200,000 people to control," Sam said, low, as he moved through the maintenance spine away from the node, back toward the concourse level, back toward the hall where 2,000 hostages knelt under the guns. That math doesn't work for him. It never worked for him. It only worked as long as everyone was too scared to make him do the math. We're going to make him do the math. Because Sam had understood something in the first 90 seconds of the siege, something Vorth in all his 2 years of planning had never grasped. A hostage situation is a bluff. 15 guns cannot actually hold 2,000 people. They can only hold 2,000 people who believe they are held. The instant the belief cracks, the instant the hostages understood that the guns were spread thin, that help was coming, that someone was out there taking Call apart from the inside, the whole equation inverted, and 15 fighters became not captors but a besieged garrison drowning in a sea of the very people they thought they controlled. Sam's job, from the moment the distress signal went out, had been to crack the belief. He started with the hall. He couldn't retake it, not 2,000 panicked hostages against the guns still posted around them, not without a slaughter. But he didn't need to retake it. He needed the people in it to know. And so, moving through the service spine behind the concourse, he found what he was looking for. The hall's internal address system, the same one Call had used to make his speech, the same one whose junction ran through the maintenance level where no one was watching. "Osik, the concourse PA, can you give me the hall? Just the hall, not the whole station. I don't want Call to hear this." A pause while the technician worked. Yes. I can isolate the hall's local address to a maintenance handset. You'll be talking to the hostages and no one else. But Sam, if you do this, Call will know the moment someone tells him, and it tells him you're near the hall." "That's fine, do it." The handset clicked live, and Sam Reyes, crouched in the dark of a maintenance spine with the blood barely back in his fingers, spoke to 2,000 terrified hostages in the voice he'd learned a long time ago, the voice for people at the absolute worst moment of their lives, the voice that did not promise them safety but promised them instead something better, a reason to hold on. "To everyone in the transit hall," he said, and his words went out over the speakers above the kneeling crowd, cutting through the dread. "Listen to me. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. The distress signal is out. Help is coming, and it's coming for certain, and all you have to do is live long enough to see it. The people holding you are fewer than you think. They are more afraid than they are letting you see, and they are already losing." In the hall, 2,000 heads came up. At the center of the hall, one of Call's remaining fighters keyed his own comm in a panic to report the broadcast to his commander. And Sam kept talking, because every second the hostages listened was a second they spent becoming people again instead of prey, and people were the one weapon Vorth could not shoot his way out of. "They took your comms so no one would know," Sam said. "The comms are back. They took your reactor so they could threaten the whole station. The reactor is locked and they can't touch it. Every move they've made in the last 20 minutes they've made because someone out here is taking their station apart around them and they can feel it and it is making them desperate. So here is what I need from you. Nothing brave. Nothing that gets you hurt. I need you to wait. Stay down. Stay calm. Take care of the person next to you. And when the moment comes, and it's coming, you'll know it and you'll know what to do. You are not hostages. You are 2,000 people and they are 15, and the only thing that ever made those numbers work for them was your fear. So keep it. Hold on. Help is here." He cut the handset. In the throne room, Vorth listened to the report of the broadcast with a stillness that frightened his own fighters, and he understood, at last and fully, exactly what was being done to him. He was not fighting a hero. Heroes he could kill. He was fighting an asterisk strategist, a mind that had in 20 minutes restored the station's comms, locked its reactor, gathered its scattered defenders, and now begun the slow, deliberate work of turning his own hostages from a shield into a mob. Every one of Call's advantages was being methodically inverted. And the worst of it, the thing that made the red-plated Thren go very quiet and very cold, was that he still did not know who the human was, or where he would strike next, or how to stop a single enemy who refused to stand still long enough to be killed. "Commander," one of his fighters at his shoulder voiced tight, "the reactor node is locked, physical override only, and the hall broadcasts the hostages there's movement in the crowd there." "I know," said Vorthkal. "Your orders." Call was silent for a long moment, and when he spoke, there was a new thing in his voice, a thing that his fighters had never heard from him in 2 years of planning, and it was the sound of a predator who has just realized he might be prey. "He wants me to come to the reactor node," Call said slowly. "He locked it to draw me down, to pull my fighters into a battle for a prize he's already denied me, so that while I'm fighting for a locked door, he does something else, somewhere else that I can't see." He turned from the display. "He is very good, but he has made one error. He believes I still care about the reactor." "You don't." The reactor was leverage. Leverage requires a future to bargain in. This human has taken my future. The response fleet is coming, and I will not hold this station when it arrives, and he knows it, and I know it. Call's compound eyes glittered. "So I no longer need leverage. I need an asterisk statement. If I cannot hold the ascendant, then I will make the manner of its fall the loudest thing the corridor has heard in 900 years. And for that, I do not need the reactor authority node." His fighter stared. "Commander, what do you need?" Vorthkal looked at the master board, at the 2,000 lives in the hall, at the 200,000 in the station, and he smiled the way a thing with no face for smiling smiles. "I need the hall," he said. "I need my 2,000 hostages gathered in one place where the whole corridor is watching. And I need to remind our clever ghost that while he has been out here playing chess with my station, the pieces that matter have been kneeling on a floor the entire time, under my guns, 1 word from death. He has been winning the station. Let us see how well he plays when I make it about the asterisk people." In the maintenance spine below, Sam Reyes, who had just cut the handset, who was already moving toward his next objective, who had every advantage he'd been building for the last 20 minutes, felt the deep vibration of the station change as, above him, Vorthkal began pulling every fighter he had back toward the transit hall, abandoning the reactor, abandoning the hunt, consolidating his remaining strength around the one thing Sam could not attack without killing the very people he was trying to save. Sam stopped in the dark. He listened to the footfalls converging above him. And he understood with a cold clarity that his enemy had just done the one thing he'd hoped he wouldn't. He'd gotten smart. He'd stopped trying to win. He'd decided to make sure that if he lost, everyone lost with him. "Osik," Sam said quietly, "he's pulling everyone back to the hall." "I see it, all 15. He's abandoning the reactor." "Sam, why would he abandon the reactor?" "Because he's not planning to survive this anymore," Sam said, and for the first time all day something in his voice went grave. "He's planning to make a point, and the point is 2,000 bodies on a floor with the whole corridor watching." He closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them. "Change of plan, all of it. Get Denna on the net. Get every blue uniform we have. We're not disappearing anymore. We're going to the hall. You said we couldn't retake the hall. You said it would be a slaughter." "That was when he wanted the hostages alive," Sam said, already moving, already running now toward the hall and the desperate cornered thing waiting in it. "It's not a hostage situation anymore, Osik. It's an execution. And the rules for stopping an execution are completely different from the rules for a siege." He hit a junction, took the ramp up toward the concourse level, toward the hall, toward Vorthkal and every gun he had left. "Get me my resistance, all of them. Because in about 5 minutes, I'm going to need 2,000 people to stop being afraid all at once. And I'm going to give them a reason." Sam Reyes ran through the maintenance spine and did the hardest math of the day. 15 fighters converging on the hall, 2,000 hostages inside it, 11 scattered security officers he could call plus Denna plus Osik, 3 hours minus 20-odd minutes until the response fleet arrived. Call it 2.5 hours of no help at all. And Vorthkal no longer bargaining, no longer patient, reorganizing his last strength around a mass of hostages he now intended not to hold but to kill in front of a corridor-wide audience as a final statement. The problem was brutal in its simplicity. Sam could not fight his way into that hall. 15 disciplined fighters in a defensible position with 2,000 hostages as human shields. There was no assault, no clever angle, no coolant trick that solved that. The moment shooting started in the hall, Call's people would fire into the crowd, and the massacre Sam was trying to prevent would be the massacre he caused. A hero would have gone in anyway. Sam had watched heroes go in anyway. He'd carried some of them out. So Sam did not think about how to win the fight in the hall. He thought about how to make sure the fight in the hall never happened at all. "Denna," he said, low, moving, "talk to me about the hall structurally. Call's got everyone gathered there. What holds them? Blast doors are down. He sealed the hall when he took it. So how does his own strength get in and out?" Denna's mind working now, sharp now. The blast doors. He can cycle them from the environmental junction, the one his people seized at the start. That's how his fighters are moving in and out. The hall's sealed to everyone except through the junction. So the junction's the key. Whoever holds the environmental junction controls whether that hall is open or shut, and controls the air and controls the doors. Sam's mind was already there, already 3 moves ahead. Osik, the junction, how's it defended? 2 fighters last I saw, but if he's consolidating, he'll pull them into the hall with the rest. He wants mass, not perimeter. He'll strip the junction to thicken the hall. Sam was betting a great deal on how Call thought, but he'd been reading the red-plated Thren all day, and he trusted the read. Denna, closest blue uniform to the environmental junction. Who's got it? That would be Officer Trell and Officer Vasso. They're 2 decks below the junction. They've been holding a stairwell. Send them up, quietly. If the junction's light, they take it. If it's not, they wait for me. But I want the junction in our hands before Call finishes gathering, because whoever holds the junction holds the doors, and whoever holds the doors decides how this ends." He kept running. And as he ran, he built the plan, the whole architecture of it. The way he'd once built plans on a jump seat with the ground coming up. Fast, complete, every piece accounted for, no wasted motion. Because here was the thing about Vorith Call's new strategy, the fatal flaw hidden inside it. To make his statement, Call needed the whole corridor watching. He needed the comms asterisk up. He'd made his fighters restore an outbound feed so the galaxy could witness his final act. But a comm feed runs both ways. The channel Call wanted to broadcast his massacre on was the same channel Sam could use to reach 2,000 hostages and 11 scattered cops, and potentially an incoming response fleet, all at once, all in the same instant. Call wanted a stage. Sam intended to take it away from him and stand on it himself. "Osik," Sam said, "Call's going to want to broadcast whatever he does in the hall, corridor-wide. He needs the audience, it's the whole point now. Can you find that feed, the outbound channel he's going to use?" Yes, I think. He's staging it. I can see the channel warming up in the comm grid. He's building a corridor-wide broadcast. He'll open it the moment he's ready. Sam, if he opens that feed, the whole corridor watches him kill 2,000. Or, Sam said, the whole corridor watches something else entirely. Can you seize that feed? When he opens it, can you take control of what goes out on it instead of him? A long pause. Sam could hear Osik thinking, the specialist's mind grinding at a problem the way Sam's ground at a battlefield. The feed is authenticated to his console, but the content asterisk, the audio and video the feed carries, that routes through the concourse grid, through the same junction that controls the hall. If we hold the junction, Sam. If we hold the environmental junction, then we hold the feed source. He can open the channel, but we asterisk decide what the channel carries. There it was, the whole plan collapsing into a single point, the way the best plans do, the environmental junction. Hold the junction, and you held the doors, the air, and the stage. Everything came down to a maintenance closet full of pressure valves that Vorth Call, in his rush to gather his strength around the hostages, was about to leave undefended. "Denna," Sam said, "the junction, it's everything. Tell Trell and Vaso to take it now, whatever it costs, and hold it until I get there. And get every other blue uniform converging on the concourse level. Not to fight. To be asterisk ready. When I give the word, I'm going to open those blast doors, and when they open, I need your people at every exit to channel 2,000 panicking hostages out and away before Call's fighters can turn their guns on them. You understand? We're not storming the hall. We're asterisk emptying asterisk it. We're going to open every door at once and pull the hostages out from under the guns before Call can fire." Denna was quiet for a moment. Then, "That could work. That could actually, but the timing, Sam, if the doors open and the hostages don't move fast enough or Call's people react before." "That's why they won't be surprised," Sam said. "That's why I talked to them. That's why I told them help was coming and to wait for the moment. They're primed. 2,000 people who have been told to hold on and wait for a signal. I open the doors, I give them the signal, and they don't hesitate because I already put the idea in their heads 20 minutes ago." He hit the ramp to the concourse level, slowed, went silent and low. "The doors open, the hostages run, your people channel them out, and Call is left standing in an empty hall with 15 guns and no one left to shoot, and a corridor-wide feed that I control. And me." "And you," Denna said. "Sam, when the hall empties, when it's just Call and his fighters and you." "Then it's a fight I can actually win," Sam said quietly. 15 guns and no hostages. That's just a room full of bad men. I've cleared rooms full of bad men before." A pause. "Get me the junction, Denna, that's the whole game." Trell and Vaso took the junction. It cost them. Vaso took a coil round through the shoulder and would carry the scar the rest of her life. But the junction was light, stripped as Sam had predicted, only a single fighter left to watch it, and 2 determined station cops who'd spent 20 minutes hearing that the station wasn't lost took him down and held the pressure controls and the door authority, and though they didn't fully understand it yet, the stage. Sam arrived 4 minutes later, coming up out of the maintenance spine into the junction, and for the first time all day, he was not alone in a fight. Trell was a broad, older officer with a steady hand. Vaso was younger, arm-bound, jaw set, refusing to leave her post. Denna's voice was in his ear coordinating 11 officers across the concourse. Osik was in the comm grid, fingers flying, holding the feed source. It was, Sam thought, looking at these ordinary frightened people who had decided to stop being afraid, the strangest and finest unit he'd ever led. "Osik," he said, "status on the feed." "Call's staging. He's got all 15 in the hall now. I count them on the internal cameras, all of them gathered at the center, the hostages pushed into a tighter mass. Sam, he's about to open the broadcast. 30 seconds, maybe less. He's going to address the corridor and then," Osik's voice cracked. "Then he's going to do it. Whatever it is, we have to move now." "Denna, are your people set? Every exit." "Every exit, 11 officers." "We're ready." Sam Reyes looked at the pressure controls, at the blast door authority, at the feed source glowing under Osik's hands. He put his own ruined, thawed fingers on the door control, and he keyed the hall's local address one last time, the handset that spoke only to the 2,000 people inside, not to Call, not to the corridor, just to them, just to the people he'd been building toward this moment with for 20 minutes. "This is the moment," Sam said, and his voice went out over the hall's speakers, over 2,000 kneeling heads. "The one I told you was coming. In 10 seconds every door in this hall is going to open, and when it does, you run, not toward the guns, away from them. Toward the doors, toward the officers in blue who are waiting for you, and you don't stop and you don't look back. 10 seconds. Get ready. Take the hand of the person next to you. A breath. You were never hostages. You were always just people waiting for a door to open. Here it comes. 3, 2, 1. Sam Rays opened every blast door in the transit hall at once. And 2,000 people, primed, waiting, told to hold on and promised a signal and given it, rose off the floor as one body and ran. For one heartbeat, Warship stood at the center of his gathered strength, his broadcast half open, his statement half spoken, and watched his 2,000 hostages surge away from him in every direction at once, pouring through 8 open blast doors into the waiting arms of blue-uniformed officers who channeled them out and away, out of the kill box, out of range, gone. His fighters swung their weapons up and found no clean shot that wasn't into a fleeing back, and even the ones who might have fired into fleeing backs hesitated one fatal instant, because a soldier trained to hold hostages is not, in that split second, mentally prepared to simply commit massacre on a running crowd, and that instant was all it took. The hall emptied. 2,000 people became 100, became a dozen, became none, in the space of 15 seconds, and Warship was left standing in the vast echoing hall with 15 guns and a live corridor-wide feed, and no one left to threaten at all. He understood then that he had lost. But he was not a man who lost quietly. "Find him," Call said into his comm, and his voice was very soft, and it went out. Osik made sure it went out, over the corridor-wide feed to every station in 3 jumps so that the whole galaxy heard the sound of Warship coming apart. "The human. He's at the environmental junction, he has to be, that's the only place the doors could be controlled from. Everyone. Now, bring me the human and I will end this the way I always meant to. Not the hostages, him." And in the environmental junction, Sam Rays heard the whole hall's worth of fighters turn, as one toward him. 15 guns, no hostages coming for him. Sam had said it himself. 15 guns and no hostages is a fight I can actually win. He'd said it and he'd meant it, and now he was going to have to prove it, against the best organized strike he'd faced all day, with a wounded officer and a steady one and a technician and a voice in his ear, in a junction with 3 exits and a lot of high-pressure pipe. He looked at Trell and Vaso. He looked at the 3 exits. He looked at the pressure valves lining the walls, the environmental controls, the whole atmospheric spine of the concourse level running through this one room under his hands. And Sam Rays, 27 years old, off-duty, who had wanted nothing in the whole universe except to go home for dinner, smiled the small, grim smile of a man who has been underestimated exactly one time too many by exactly the wrong person. "Osik," he said, "the feed's still live. The whole corridor's still watching. Good, leave it open, I want them to see this." He checked the pistol. Green, 2 cells left. He looked at the valves. "Trell, Vaso, get low, get behind the coolant bank and cover the west exit. Don't come out no matter what you hear. This next part's mine." "You're going to fight all 15, Vaso said, disbelieving, cradling her bound arm. "In here." "Alone." "No," Sam said, and put his hand on the master pressure valve, the one that controlled the entire atmospheric flow of the concourse spine, the one thing in this room that 15 fighters charging into a maintenance junction would never think to account for, because they were soldiers coming to kill a man, and it would never occur to them that the man had been standing at the controls of the very air they were about to breathe. "I'm not going to fight all 15, Sam Rays said. "I'm going to let the station do most of it. Here they come." While Call's fighters converged on the junction, Sam Rays spent the 90 seconds he had left doing the thing he did best, preparing the ground so thoroughly that the fight itself became a formality. He'd learned that a long time ago in a different life, from a team sergeant who used to say that a firefight was just the last, loudest, least important part of a plan, and that if you were relying on the firefight to win, you'd already lost somewhere upstream. The winning happened before the shooting. It happened in the reconnaissance, in the positioning, in the 100 small preparations that turned a room into a machine that did your killing for you. By the time the guns came out, the outcome should already be decided. The shooting was just the room catching up to a decision Sam had made minutes earlier. So while 3 fighters stacked at the north door and 3 at the west and 9 massed at the central corridor with Vorth Kal at their heart, Sam Reyes was not thinking about how to shoot 15 people. He was thinking about pressure. "Osik," he said low, his hands moving over the junction's controls with the fluency of a man who had made Osik walk him through every valve in the last 4 minutes. "Confirm for me. The primary manifold, the fat one over the central door. If I dump the whole concourse spine through it, does it blow or does it hold?" A pause while the technician's specialist mind ran the numbers. It blows. It's rated for steady-state flow, not a full-spine surge. If you dump the entire concourse differential through it at once, the manifold ruptures. There'll be an overpressure wave, a big one, and then the section vents to the emergency ducts. "Sam, if there are people under that manifold when it goes." "There will be," Sam said. 15 of them, and I'm going to funnel them there myself." He glanced at the central door, at the largest of the 3, at the one Kal's main body was already choosing because it was the widest, and a soldier always chooses the widest approach for his main effort. "Confirm the timing. From the moment I open the master valve to the moment the manifold blows, how long?" 2 seconds, maybe 3. The pressure has to build to the rupture threshold. 2-3 seconds of building, then it goes. 2 or 3 seconds. Sam filed it, made it part of himself, the way he'd made 100 timings part of himself over the years, timings measured in the space between a man's decision and his death. "Then I open the valve 2 or 3 seconds before I want it to go, not when." "Good. Trell Vaso last time. Masks on, get behind the coolant bank, get low, and do not come out until I call you by name. The overpressure will roll right over the top of you if you stay low. Stand up and it'll break you, understand?" "Understood," said Trell, the older officer, and there was no fear in it, only the flat readiness of a cop who had decided to trust the young human completely, because the young human had been right about everything for 11 hours. Vaso, arm-bound, Josset said nothing, only nodded and got low. Sam pulled his own breather over his face and hooked his arm through the wall bracket he'd chosen an hour of instinct ago, the one anchored deep enough to hold a human against a pressure wave. He set his feet. He checked the pistol one last time. Green, 2 cells, steady. And he waited, in the loud silence before the storm, listening to 15 fighters commit to the doors, listening to Vorth Kal's 4-armed footfalls in the central corridor, listening to the whole architecture of the day funnel down to a single point of pressure and time. Because this was the truth that the assembly, in its 900 years of confidence, had never grasped about the small, soft creatures from Earth. That the thing which made a human dangerous was not strength, which they lacked, nor natural weapons, which they had none of, nor even courage, which many species had in greater measure. It was this, the patient, relentless, almost inhuman capacity to stand in a room full of things that wanted to kill them, and instead of panicking, instead of fighting, instead of dying well, simply think, coldly and completely, until the room itself became a weapon in their hands. Vorth Kal had spent 2 years planning the takeover of the Velkaran Ascendant. He had accounted for the station's defenses, the assembly's response, the possibility of a hero. He had planned brilliantly, and moved boldly, and very nearly won. And in the end, he was going to be undone by a tired young man at a pressure valve, who had spent his whole life learning that the loudest part of the fight was the least important, and that the winning was already done, quietly, before the first shot, and that the only thing left now was for a maintenance junction full of the very best fighters Vorth Kal had left to catch up, in a howling wall of vented atmosphere, to a decision a human had already made. The central door filled with armored shapes, 9 fighters and a red-plated commander at their heart, pouring into a room built for 2, certain they had cornered their ghost at last. Sam Reyes watched them cross beneath the primary manifold, counted 2, and opened the master valve. They came the way Kal's people always came, fast, disciplined in stacks, 3 fighters through the north exit, 3 through the west, and the main body, 9, with Vorthkal himself at their heart, massing at the central corridor that fed the junction's largest door. Sam had counted on that. The junction had 3 ways in, and the largest could not be resisted by a single defender, and Kal knew it, and Kal was funneling his strength through it because he wanted overwhelming mass at the point of contact. He was thinking like a soldier. He was thinking about guns and angles and volume of fire. He was not thinking about the fact that Sam Rays was standing at the master atmospheric valve for the entire concourse spine, and that the largest door, the one Kal's main body was pouring through, sat directly beneath the junction's primary pressure manifold. Trell Vaso masks on, now, and down. Sam pulled the emergency breather from the junction wall over his own face, the same kind of orange emergency gear that had been clipped to 100 bulkheads all over the station, invisible until it mattered. OSIC, the feed's live. Live, the whole corridor's watching. They can see the junction cameras. They can see you. Good, Sam said. Then they'll see this. He waited. He was very good at waiting. He waited until the north stack and the west stack had committed through their doors, and the main body of 9 was pouring through the central door with Vorthkal in the middle of them. All of them inside the junction now. All of them crowded into a maintenance room built for 2 technicians. 15 fighters filling the space with guns and armor, and the absolute certainty that they had cornered a single soft creature at last. And Sam Rays opened the master valve and dumped the concourse spine. The atmospheric system of a station like the Ascendant carries a great deal of pressure, and it is designed, in an emergency, to be able to purge a contaminated section fast. Sam did not vent the junction to vacuum. That would have killed Trell and Vaso and himself, and it wasn't necessary. What he did was cruder and faster and precisely calibrated. He slammed the entire concourse spine's pressure differential through the junction's primary manifold in a single catastrophic surge. And the manifold, the fat pipe directly above the central door, directly above the mast 9 and Vorthkal, did exactly what an overpressured manifold does. It blew. The blast of superpressurized atmosphere hit the main body like the fist of the station itself. It was not an explosion of fire. It was worse, a wall of pressure that picked up 9 armored fighters and threw them off their feet and against the far bulkhead and each other, that snatched the guns from their 4 hands and scattered them, that filled the junction with a howling white chaos of vented atmosphere in which no compound eye could see and no fighter could stand and no coordinated stack could hold. The north and west stacks, caught at the edge of it, went down too, tumbled and stunned and blinded. And Sam Rays, breather sealed, feet braced, one hand hooked through a wall bracket he'd chosen for exactly this, rode out the surge he'd created, and then came off the wall into the white chaos with the pistol up and went to work in the one environment on the entire station that he was ready for and no one else was. He did not miss. He moved through the howling white pressure storm like it was his native element, and to the fighters it must have seemed as though death itself had learned to walk, because they could not see and could not stand and could not find their weapons, and out of the white came the human, low and sure and merciless, and one by one, in the space of perhaps 20 seconds, he ended the strike Vorthkal had sent to kill him. The north stack, stunned against the wall, the west stack, blind and scrambling, the main body, scattered and disarmed. Sam took them the way water takes a fire, without heat, without waste, moving from target to target in the chaos he'd built with the terrible economy that had once made an entire specialized unit go quiet whenever he entered a room. And then it was only Vorthkal. The pressure surge bled off. The white chaos thinned and cleared, venting up through the junction's emergency ducts, and the howling died to a hiss and then to silence. And when the air cleared, Sam Rays was standing in the middle of a junction full of fallen fighters, breather over his face, alien pistol in his hand, and Vorthkal, red-plated 2.5 meters, the mastermind of 2 years' planning, was on the far side of the room, half risen against the bulkhead, a coil rifle in his lower two hands. And the two of them looked at each other across the wreckage of Call's entire operation. "You," Call said. His translator carried it to the corridor-wide feed to the whole watching galaxy. His voice was not soft anymore. There was something ragged in it, something that had finally, at the very end, understood. One human, one soft, small, fragile human. You took my station apart with your bare hands. Sam pulled the breather down off his face. He was breathing hard. His fingers ached from the cold that had never fully left them. He looked in that moment exactly like what the galaxy had always insisted he was. A young man, ordinary, tired, made of water and bone. And he looked at Call down the barrel of a pistol that was still, despite everything, perfectly steady. "Not with my bare hands," Sam said. "With the station. With 11 cops who decided to stop being afraid. With a technician who chose the right side. With 2,000 people who ran when I told them to run." He took one slow step forward. "You kept thinking this was about you and me. It was never about you and me. That was your whole mistake. You thought you were fighting a hero. You were fighting everyone. I just gave them the door." Call's grip tightened on the rifle. "The feed is still live," he said. "The whole corridor is watching. If I die here, I die on every screen in 3 jumps, the Thren who took the Ascendant, the one who almost." "You're not going to die a martyr," Sam said quietly. "You're going to be arrested by a station cop named Dennis Sorrell, and you're going to stand trial, and the whole corridor that's watching right now is going to see you not as the Thren who brought the assembly to its knees, but as the man who lost an entire Warship station to a single tired civilian who just wanted to go home for dinner. That's your legacy, Vorith. Not fire, not a statement, just a very long, very quiet embarrassment." He took one more step. "Put the rifle down. It's over. You know it's over. You've known it for 10 minutes. For a long moment, Call did not move. His compound eyes glittered with 2 years of planning turned to ash, and his 4 scarred arms trembled, and the whole corridor watched. And Sam Rays held the pistol steady and waited, because he was very good at waiting, and because he genuinely did not want to kill this man on a live feed if he did not have to, because that too would become a kind of story, and Sam had learned long ago that the manner of an ending mattered. And then Call, who had planned everything except failure, who had accounted for every variable except a single underestimated human, made his final decision. And it was the decision of a proud thing that could not bear the ending it had been offered. He raised the rifle. He was fast even then, even broken, even at the end. A Thren warrior with 2 years of preparation and every ounce of his considerable strength behind the motion. In a fair fight, in an even contest against a lesser opponent, it might have been enough. But Sam Rays had never once in his entire life given anyone a fair fight, and he had seen the decision forming in Call's body a full half-second before the rifle moved, and he was already firing. The single shot took Call cleanly, and the mastermind of the siege of the Velcurin Ascendant slid down the bulkhead and did not rise, the rifle clattering from his 4 hands, and it was over, all of it, on a live feed watched by every station in 3 jumps. And the last thing the corridor saw was not a martyr in fire, but a lone human lowering a pistol in a wrecked maintenance junction with the quiet, unhappy expression of a man who had done a hard thing, because it was the only thing left to do. Sam stood there for a moment in the sudden silence. Then he holstered the pistol and he keyed his comm and he said in a voice that had gone very tired, "It's done. Call's down. The junction's clear. It's over." The silence on the line lasted 3 full seconds. Then it broke all at once into voices, Denna's, Ossic's, Trell's, and Vasso's from behind the coolant bank, and under them rising the sound of 2,000 people who had run and lived, who were safe now in the corridors beyond, who were beginning, one by one, to understand that they were going to see tomorrow after all. The response fleet arrived 90 minutes later. By then it was all over but the accounting. Dennis Sorrell's third watch, no longer scattered, had reformed into a functioning force and secured every deck. The surviving members of Call's team, there were 3, unconscious in the junction, who would live to stand trial, were in custody. The 2,000 hostages had been counted and recounted, and the count that came back against all odds, against everything the arithmetic of the day had threatened, was a number that made Denna's plating flush deep living green when she read it. Every hostage alive. Every single one. 9 station officers dead in the first 90 seconds before anyone could have saved them, and Sam would carry those 9 the rest of his life. But of the 2,000 in the hall, from the moment a young human decided not to kneel, not one had died. The assembly boarding officers who came aboard the Ascendant expected to find a devastated station and a heroic defense mounted by its security forces. They found instead a functioning command net, a technician named Ossic Varn feeding them clean intelligence, a junior officer named Dennis Sorrell running a coordinated force with the calm of a veteran 3 times her rank, and sitting quietly on a crate in a maintenance bay with a cup of synthetic coffee someone had pressed into his aching hands, a young human civilian in a torn gray jacket who did not, when they asked him what unit he was with, give them a straight answer. "I'm not with anyone," Sam said. "I'm retired. I was just trying to catch a shuttle home." The senior assembly officer, a Thren 3 centuries old who had seen a great many things, looked at the young human for a long moment, and then looked at the corridor-wide feed recording that the whole galaxy had now watched a dozen times, the recording of what a single retired human had done to a warship station's worth of armed fighters, and he said, carefully, "The assembly ranks your species below the Select. Resourceful, we say, but fragile, not to be feared." Sam sipped the terrible coffee. "Yeah," he said, "I've heard that." "After today," the old Thren said slowly, "I think the assembly is going to have to revise its rankings." "I'd rather you didn't," Sam said, and he meant it. "I'd rather you all went back to thinking I'm harmless. It's more restful. And honestly," he set the coffee down and stood and picked up his small duffel that had somehow survived the whole terrible day slung across his back, "it's usually safer for everyone, for me and for whoever I'm standing next to." He looked toward the docking spine, toward the shuttles, toward the corridor home. "Is my connection still running to the Sol transfer?" The old Thren stared at him. Your connection." "My shuttle," Sam said patiently. "I've got people expecting me. I'm 3 years late as it is." Before he left, Dennis Sorrell found him at the shuttle gate. She was different than she'd been 11 hours ago, the frightened junior officer frozen behind a relay bank. She'd killed today and lost people today, and held 200,000 lives together with her voice, and it had put something in her that would never fully leave. The thing that Sam recognized, because he carried it too, the quiet weight of having been the one the moment fell to and not having dropped it. "They're going to give you a commendation," Sam told her. "You earned it. You held the net together. Without you the whole thing falls apart in the first 10 minutes. "Without you," Dennis said, "we're all dead, 2,000 of us on a floor." "Me first." She looked at him, this ordinary young human who had walked out of a coolant spine that killed Thren in 10 seconds, who had emptied a hall of 2,000 people in 15, who had taken apart a warship station with a borrowed pistol and a talent for making the desperate stop being afraid. "The old ones, the assembly, they think humans are soft, fragile. I heard them say it in the customs line the same day about you, I think, about you specifically." She shook her head slowly. "What are you? Really, what kind of human does all of that?" Sam Ray's thought about it. He thought about the 9 cops he hadn't been able to save and the 2,000 people he had. He thought about the cold in his fingers that hadn't fully left and might never. He thought about the version of himself he'd tried to retire 11 months ago, the one that turned out to still be in there, waiting, and always would be, and how a part of him was tired of it, and a part of him would always answer when the moment called. He thought about how to say all of that to a young officer who'd earned an honest answer. The kind that got trained to run toward the thing everyone else runs away from, he said finally, and then got told to stop, and found out you can't really, not all the way. He shrugged, and there was something almost gentle in it. There's a lot of us, Denna, more than the assembly thinks. We just mostly look like tired people trying to get home. That's the whole trick. That's the only trick there is. You keep looking soft until the exact second it matters, and then you don't. He picked up his duffel. Take care of your station, Officer Sorrel. You're good at it. Better than you know yet. The shuttle to the Sol transfer departed on schedule, more or less, once the docking authority had been restored. Sam Reyes took a seat by the window, in a cabin full of ordinary travelers who had no idea what had happened in the transit hall, or who the quiet young man in the torn gray jacket was, and he watched the vast wheel of the Valkyrian Ascendant fall away behind them. 12 kilometers of station that had, for a few hours, belonged to a man who thought a single human could not matter. He closed his eyes. His fingers still ached with a cold that would take days to fully leave. Somewhere behind him, a Thren had learned, too late, the thing the whole galaxy would eventually have to learn about the soft-bodied newcomers from the little blue world. That fragility is not the same as harmlessness, and that the most dangerous creature in any room is very often the one everyone has already decided not to watch. The shuttle turned toward the corridor home, toward Earth, toward a small apartment in a coastal city and a family that had stopped expecting him, and Sam Reyes, 27 years old, off-duty, retired, and the most dangerous single point aboard any station he ever set foot on, let out a long, slow breath, and allowed himself, at last, one small, tired human smile, and said, very quietly to no one at all, the thing he'd said in the dark of a service corridor 11 hours before. When the whole terrible day was just beginning, and he was the only one who knew how it would end. Home for dinner,